The Vera Tommy Show. The Vera Tommy Show. The Vera Tommy Show. The Vera Tommy Show. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the Vera Tommy Show. The Vera Tommy Show. The Vera Tommy Show. The Vera Tommy Show. Let's talk about it. 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 On the Vera Tommy Show. Let's talk about it. Yeah.
Hi, I am so excited tonight about my guest, but before I bring her up, I want to encourage you to like, share, comment, and subscribe to my channel. And right now, my guest is Laura Hope, and we're going to be talking about some serious things tonight. Hello, Laura. How are you tonight?
Hello, Vera. I'm doing well. I'm so glad to be here.
And I am so glad that you are here. I am going to share with our audience just a little bit about Laura Hope. She is a behavior transformation coach who helps people break free from unwanted habits and regain their confidence and reclaim their confidence. At Hope and Healing Coach, she combines her years of clinical experience with deep empathy to guide clients towards lasting change, specializing in body focused repetitive behaviors known as BFRBs, such as hair pulling, or skin picking or nail biting, as well as other frustrating behaviors such as stress eating or impulse spending. When she's not empowering clients to embrace radical self acceptance, you'll find her advocating for BFRB awareness, tending to her ever growing plant collection, or spending time with her two sons and husband. You can learn more about her at www.hopeandhealingcoach.com. And I will be putting that up. As a matter of fact, why don't I just do it right now? That's your email. And there we are. All right. So I'm going to leave this up. I'm going to give you the floor and have you share with our audience your story and what led you to do the work that you do with such purpose and such passion.
Oh, thank you for that introduction, Vera. So to give a bit of my own story, the reason why I'm so passionate about this is that I have struggled with hair pulling, or the medical term for it is trichotillomania, which sounds like a mouthful. And so I started pulling my hair when I was about 12 years old, which is a pretty common time for people who struggle with trichotillomania, or trick for short, to start doing this behavior. And honestly, at first I didn't know that I was doing it. I knew that I played with my hair a lot, but I didn't realize that I was pulling it out until my mom noticed that I had some bald spots. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, did I do that? Um, and so I saw doctors, and nobody could really help in terms of doctors, because they were all trying to fix or address, treat, different dermatologic or skin conditions. And that wasn't what was going on. I was pulling out my own hair. So I had so much shame about this, and I didn't understand why I was doing it. I didn't understand why I couldn't stop. It took me a long time. Of course, as you're a teenager, you worry about what people think of you, right? And it took me a long time to fix my hair before going to school. And I remember sometimes I'd get back, class pictures, and my hair was kind of like bigger on one side than the other because I had these bald spots. And I just carried so much shame. And I didn't tell a single soul that I was pulling my hair out until I was in my early 30s. So it was about 20 years where people knew I had bald spots, but I told them it was this medical condition called alopecia areata, which is basically what the dermatologist had called it when he didn't know what was going on. He just knew I was losing hair. And so people knew I had bald spots, but I said, it was this condition until finally I got up enough courage to tell a therapist. And he didn't know how to help me because a lot of therapists aren't trained in this, but he did help me realize that there were a lot of stressful things going in my life that I was dealing with. And so then I learned more about it. I, of course, Googled it and found the different resources and found different strategies. And I got to the point where I learned all these strategies. And along this way, I was also going to school to become a physician assistant so I could help people in psychiatry. And so I wanted to help myself, but I also wanted to help the patients that I was going to be seeing. And I collected all of these strategies, wear gloves or cover your hands or have fidgets. And there was still a piece that was missing. I knew how to do all these things. I knew the stuff I was supposed to be doing or should be doing, and I still wasn't able to implement it. And finally, I got to the point where, honestly, it felt like I was giving up. It felt like I just, was frustrated. And what I know now that I didn't know then is I was actually taking the very first step towards self-acceptance and acknowledging that this is how my brain worked. And once I learned self-acceptance and self-compassion, that's when it all started to fall into place. That's when the strategies seemed to start being helpful. And so I've taken those things that I've learned, the strategies and the acceptance and the awareness, and that's what I teach my patients and coaching clients now so that they can manage their own frustrating behaviors, whether it's hair pulling, nail biting, skin picking, stress eating, basically anything that anyone says, why can't I stop doing this? Those are the type of behaviors that I help people with.
That's awesome. Now, you mentioned there were some stressors in your life. What kind of stressors, if you don't mind sharing, what were
I
some
don't
of the
mind.
stressors that were causing you to pull your hair? And with me, I used to bite my nails and didn't
Mhm.
realize that it was any kind of condition. And Stephanie Treasure, thank you so much for being here.
Mhm.
Really appreciate that. Please like, share, comment, continue to comment and give us your feedback on what we're talking about. Much appreciate you. Thank you very much. And let others know what we're talking about here tonight. All right. So, what were some of those stressors that caused you at the age of 12 to start pulling your hair?
Yeah, at the age of 12, I had a stepdad that wasn't very kind or understanding, and so that was really stressful in my home. He was very erratic and emotional, and one minute he was fine and happy, and the next minute he was angry and screaming, and so that was a lot of tension in the home.
Yes.
And when you're a teenager, you just don't know what to do with that, right? You know that it doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel good to have somebody kind of flip-flopping back and forth with their emotions, but you don't know what to do. And a lot of times people in that situation don't even know that it's different in other homes, right? We don't learn until we get up and we go to other homes to even realize that what's going on in our home is dysfunctional. So when I was young, that was the issue. It's not unusual for us when we grow up in households like that to end up stepping into other relationships like that. So I stepped into a really unhealthy relationship. My first husband, who I was with for 15 years, married for 10 of those. And I didn't even know that I was unhappy. I did such a good job of convincing myself that everything was fine. And when things were tough, I thought, well, I just need to try harder. People say marriages are tough. This has got to be what they mean. And And I didn't even realize that I wasn't happy until there I was, crying every day on the way to school because I was, like I said, I was going to school to be a physician assistant. I was crying every day on the way there and on the way back. And that's part of why I went to the therapist. I said, I don't know what's wrong. Everything in my life is fine. I'm just crying all the time. And he really helped me work through some of that and gain some honesty with myself about the stuff that I wasn't happy with. I also often say I'm a recovering perfectionist. I used to think that I needed to do all the things for all the people and I needed to bend over backwards and everybody else was more important than me and my needs came last. And so that's another thing that I've really worked on over the past years is really respecting and appreciating myself to understand when I've met my limit and when I need to say no and when I
Yeah.
need to let myself rest.
Yes. Our body tells us what we need to do, doesn't it?
It does. Well, and that's a great point, Vera, because I often tell people with these behaviors, they're messages to us. We think of them as bad habits or these bad behaviors, but honestly, they're messages that we're getting out of balance. They're messages that we're either understimulated and bored and we don't have goals to work towards, or they're messages that we are overstimulated and stressed and anxious and overwhelmed and we need to slow it down. And so I really encourage people to look at these behaviors as messages that our body is sending us to say, hey, we're getting out of balance. Let's take a minute and figure out what's going on here. How do we get back in balance?
That is so, and I can relate to your story about, your stepfather, and I know with me I felt different
Mm,
from my other siblings, and I used to bite my nails, but I had a sister that used to pull out her hair. Now she did this as a toddler,
mhm,
and which was a part of a nervous condition,
mhm,
I'm sure. And she would just pull it out and eat it. Um, and I don't recall when she stopped, but I remember when she was like 2 and 3 years old,
mm,
that's when she was really, I remember her doing that.
mhm,
And you started at the age of 12.
mhm,
So, and I know you work with adults as well as teenagers.
mhm. Yes.
Can you give some ideas of, in talking with your clients, what kinds of things trigger those types of behaviors?
Yeah, it's anything that throws us off balance. And so that can be a lot of different things. For some people, that's a lot of pressure in school to do well. And for other people, that might be overcommitted with maybe sports and school and trying to do a lot. For other people, it could be boredom. It could be not having enough, healthy, stimulating activities to look forward to and have goals. And so it can be pretty much anything that is dysregulating. And I guess another thing that I should throw out there that I see a lot is when people feel, I think stifled is the best word, by other people in their lives, whether that's a parent or whether that's a friend, people who feel like they have to live under the shadow of somebody because they're not allowed to be themselves, that can often bring out these behaviors. And I think that's one of the more difficult to recognize signs of this because it's not as obvious as school is really busy or work is really busy. But I do see that a lot where people feel like they can't be themselves. And so these behaviors kind of come out as a soothing mechanism to help soothe them through the distress of not being able to be themselves.
And is rocking one of those as well?
It can be for some people. For some people, it's a type of stimulation. I see it a lot with people who either have autism spectrum disorder or ADHD. Sometimes people will fidget, and rocking is one of those. I tend to swivel in my chair, so you might notice me swiveling a lot. And it's yes, those behaviors are always to regulate. Again, for some people, it's really uncomfortable to sit still in one spot, and so these types of behaviors can help get out some of that nervous energy. And it's not even always nervous energy, but it's a restless energy. Also, fidgets. If I'm sitting in a seat like this, I usually have something to play with so that my hands have some way to get that energy out. So yeah, that rocking or fidgeting a lot of times It's seen when people just have that restless energy, and it helps to be able to move in a socially appropriate way because it's not okay to stand up and move about, right, all the time. And so we have to find ways to channel that into something that is more acceptable and aligned with our goals and what we want to do.
That's beautiful. And what would you say to parents who may notice some of these types of behaviors in their teenagers and or in their younger children?
Kids,
What would you
yeah, yeah.
say to them?
So that's a great question. I love it because there are so many parents who aren't sure how to handle this. And my biggest piece of advice for parents who might see their kids struggling with hair pulling, skin picking, nail biting, so on, is to love and support your kid. Recognize that they're not broken. There isn't anything wrong, so to speak, with them. They're just feeling out of balance. And that's a behavior that is coming in to try to bring in some balance. And so, really trying to avoid shaming them or telling them to stop. And so a lot of times the question is, well, then what do I do if I'm not going to tell them to stop? How do I get them to stop? And the answer there is to help redirect them, but to not focus on the behavior itself. Rather, a parent will have more success if they focus on teaching their child other coping strategies, such as deep breathing or using the fidgets that I mentioned. Or for some parents, that's helping the kid get treatment in therapy or with a provider, or sometimes it's helping their kid get wigs. I wear wigs. I love it. It's been one of the best strategies to manage my hair pulling. And so the parents' role is really support. And it's so important for parents to recognize that this isn't their battle to fight. It's their job to support their kid and to be there for their kid and love their kid through it. But ultimately, the kid has to make the changes. This isn't something, it's not a war for the parents to win for the kid, right? It just doesn't
Right.
work that way. And so to really support their kids through it and love their kids through it and help give their kids other coping strategies.
And we're going to be talking about some of those coping strategies. We've already mentioned a couple. One, deep breathing. And
Mhm.
I know personally how being able to sit and just breathe, it is so helpful. So
Yes.
helpful. And then, to love and support your children when they appear out of balance. And I loved what you said. Instead of criticizing them, name calling, redirect them
Mhm.
into doing some other things. And I think that's a key thing. Redirect the activity.
Yeah. Or sometimes just ask what the kid needs and saying, like, hey, do you need a hug? Or hey, do you want this fidget? Or hey, how are you feeling right now? That can also be really helpful. But telling a
Yes.
kid to just quit, just stop doing it, oh, you're biting your nails again, stop doing it. It's just not helpful. It just isn't helpful.
So asking questions is very important
Hmm.
because and it also lets your child know that you hear them, you see them, you feel them by
Yeah.
asking questions like, and I'm putting this in the chat, how are you feeling?
Yeah.
What are some other
And
questions? Go ahead.
that helps the kid. I like how are you feeling because it helps the kid reflect on how they're feeling and start to
Yes.
come up with their own words, right? Because that's a skill. We aren't born with that skill to reflect on how we're feeling. We have to practice it. And
Yes.
so asking the kid, how are you feeling right now, helps them recognize their own kind of risky emotions that they might experience. Because a lot of us, we have those high risk emotions. When I'm feeling anxious, I'm more likely to do this. Or when I'm feeling bored, I'm more likely to do this. And so redirecting. I also like the question of, do you need a hug? If your kid's a hugger, I recognize that you get into an age kind of in teenage years where like hugs aren't okay anymore, right? But if your
Yes.
kid is at an age where they're okay with hugs, then saying like, hey, do you need a hug right now? What do you need? How can I support you?
I
And I love
love
that
it.
you mentioned kind of leaning in. And yes, that when we show our kids that we are curious, that helps them get curious about themselves. And it also shows our kids that we're not judging them. If we're asking questions rather than telling them what we want them to do or
Yes.
what we don't want them to do, that shows our kid that we are supporting them and we're not
Yes.
trying to steer this ship for them. We're trying to help them learn to steer their own ship.
Yes. And that's so empowering. It
Yeah.
is so empowering when you allow your children to decide how they can alter some things in their lives. So often we as parents want to just tell them, do this, do that. Why are you doing this? And
Yeah.
questioning in that way rather than allowing children to begin to think critically about themselves and their experiences
Mm,
is so important. It is so
mhm.
important.
Yeah, agree. Because one day you're not going to be there to tell them what to do or not to do. And if you haven't taught them how to think for themselves at that point, there gets to be a time where it's too late, right? There are
Yes,
other peers who are going to help them make up their mind if you didn't teach them right from wrong or how to reflect, right? Somebody else is going to
yes,
step in and do that. And I know as a parent, that time came much faster than I realized. I remember there have been a couple times in my kids' lives where I thought, oh my gosh, we're at that point. I hope I did okay with all the work up to this point because it is, it's largely out of my control now. And so yeah, it's really important that we teach our kids to think critically and that we teach our kids that we are here to support them, not to do everything for them.
absolutely. And that also teaches responsibility.
Yes. Yes.
Accepting responsibility and
Mhm.
starting at an early age. And I know we're
Right.
kind of digressing from the point, but that's a part of it.
Yes.
Oftentimes, kids may be having different types of behaviors like pulling, the
Mhm.
skin or the hair
Mhm.
or the nails, biting the nails, um, when if we can help them begin to, like you said, regulate,
Yeah.
regulate through questioning and through observing. You might
Mhm.
even want to say, I see you seem a little anxious right now. Tell me
Mm.
more about that. What's going on with that?
Yeah.
Did something happen today that caused you to feel this way? And just having
Mhm.
those conversations, it's so important.
Exactly, exactly. And you mentioned regulating, and I know we started to talk to you about other ways to regulate. I love that you mentioned breathing exercises. I think breathing exercises and meditations are some of the most underrated regulation tools out there. So often I talk to people that say, "Well, I can't meditate because I can't get my mind to shut off," or, I can't do breathing exercises because I can't focus on it, or really discount them. And it truly is once you practice these skills, they're so valuable and they're things that you can't unlearn, right? You can't forget your breath at home. You can't, these are things that you always have with you. So I love that you mentioned those because those are really important regulation tools that often encourage people to lean into and practice and give it some time and give it enough time that you get over that discomfort of newness and then see how you feel with
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely. And you can start by just when you concentrate on your breathing, then you can't really focus on other stuff that's going on because you're
Yes.
concentrating on your breathing. And so, breathing in on the count of four, holding it on the count of four,
Mhm.
and then breathing out on the count of four. And if your focus is on that, then all this other stuff is going to kind of dissipate. And
Yeah.
where meditation is concerned, focus on one word.
Mhm.
You can focus on one word. Just say it over and over again. When
Yeah.
I wanted confidence, I would just constantly say, I'm confident, I'm confident, I am confident, I'm
Yeah.
confident. I would fall asleep saying, I am confident, I'm confident. And it just, I'm telling you, that's one form of meditation.
Yep.
Another may be a phrase that you may use, or an affirmation that you
Mhm.
say over and over again, or a scripture that you
Mhm.
say over and over again. Another self-regulating thing that for me has been amazing. Just simply saying, peace, be still.
Mm. Mm. That's a good one. Yeah.
Peace, be still.
Yeah.
And you say it with that peace,
Mhm.
be
Yeah.
still.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, those words are powerful.
They
and can
are.
help regulate you. And I know that
Absolutely.
personally.
Yes. I know one of my go-to phrases, especially when I'm struggling with self-criticism, because we all struggle with self-criticism.
Yeah, we do.
Those voices pop up, right? We can get better at kind of listening to them and reassuring ourselves, or we can struggle with that. But everybody has these criticisms, right? And so one of the kind of, as I call, back pocket phrases, those things that you can use over and over again are, I'm doing the best I can right now. I'm doing the best I can with the tools I have.
I
This is what I
love
have.
it.
And so yeah, that's another one that I rely on often when I notice that criticism popping up in my head, reminding myself, I'm doing the best I can right now.
Yes.
I'm gonna get through this. I'm gonna be okay.
Yes, I love it. I'm typing that in
Yeah.
here.
Oh, awesome.
I am doing the best I can right now.
Because so often we beat ourselves up. And I often talk to clients and patients about how that self-criticism, it actually fuels these behaviors. Because remember, these behaviors are coming from a place of being out of balance or being dysregulated. And so when we criticize ourselves like that, it's the same as if somebody was standing next to us criticizing us. It doesn't,
Yes.
gets us even more out of balance, more dysregulated, right? And so that self criticism only feeds these behaviors and honestly gives them more work to do. The behaviors are trying to do two things. Number one, signal to you that you are out of balance. And number two, help you regain that balance. And so if we increase the dysregulation by telling ourselves how terrible we were, and I can't believe you did this again, and you were supposed to stop pulling your hair, biting your nails, we contribute to that dysregulation and we give the behavior more work to do.
And you
So we
know
can just,
what?
yeah, yeah,
That self criticism fuels the behavior.
it does.
So when you find yourself criticizing yourself, belittling yourself, putting yourself down, saying negative things to yourself about yourself, reverse it.
Yeah.
Either say, I'm doing the best I can right now,
Mhm.
or if that negative thought is, I can't do this, I can
Mhm.
do this.
Yeah, yeah,
I can do this. I'm
yeah,
stupid. No, I'm smart.
yeah.
Talk to yourself. And it's okay to talk to yourself. It's even
Yes,
okay to answer
absolutely,
yourself. You just never
absolutely.
say to yourself, huh? What'd you
Yeah,
say?
yeah. Well, I'm so glad you mentioned that because I encourage people to talk to themselves and talk themselves through it. And honestly, one of the pieces that I bring into my work is IFS, internal family systems. And essentially in that work, the idea behind it is that we're all made up of these different parts. And I tell people, this isn't like, I've got multiple personality parts. This is that part of you that's like, oh, I really want the ice cream. And then the other part of you that's like, I shouldn't have the whole pint of ice cream, right? That kind of
Right.
part. So we do deal with these kind of differing parts or differing thoughts. And it's really important to help those parts work together rather than try to, get rid of one or cut it out. Again, trying to get rid of any part of ourself is going to increase that dysregulation. So recognizing, okay, I really want the ice cream right now. That sounds really good. I know eating a whole pint isn't healthy. So let me try to strike a balance and have a small bowl of ice cream and then move on to another activity. So that type of striking a balance between the different parts can be really helpful, even when it comes to these hair pulling behaviors or skin picking, nail biting.
That's that is sound advice.
Mm. Mm.
Very sound. I'm going to pull up your logo, and in
Yeah.
so doing, I want you to kind of share some some things without, I mean, because if you could share like some scenarios that
Mhm.
you had to deal with and what you did to help that client
Mhm.
regulate
Yeah.
or change or transform. That's the word.
Yeah. Yeah.
Transform. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So one client that comes to mind, she was really struggling with skin picking, and in particular, it was the bottom of her feet. And so it was really painful, and she was struggling because they were bleeding. And even when they weren't bleeding, when she walked around, it was just painful when she walked because the skin on the bottom of her feet was torn up. And so one of the things that we did was we got curious about it. And, we looked at when was she most likely to do this, in what situations, where was she in her home, what was she feeling, thinking at the time. So we got curious about it. And we found out that she had her favorite spot in her living room where she would sit and she would just kind of prop her foot up and she would pick at her skin when she was watching TV or doing something that, wasn't super involved. And so we had her move to a different spot in her living room and also put like pillows and stuff in her old spot so that she wouldn't, just kind of mindlessly sit down there. It helped bring that awareness. And then we also, when she wasn't in that room, had her keep socks on her feet all the time so that if she went to pick, at least she had to be a bit more mindful about taking the sock off. It was harder to do the behavior mindlessly. And so that was really helpful for her. Over a couple of months, the skin on her feet healed. And she said, for the first time in years, I can walk around and not have these sores on my feet. And so that was a really great transformation to see. And to see her go from, we talked about this self-criticism, to see her go from this self-criticism to really lifting herself up and being proud of herself for making those changes. And
That's
so
beautiful.
yeah, so that was great. I know I've had several clients with hair pulling, one in particular who we really worked on, can we get hats everywhere? Can we put a hat near your computer and a hat in your car and a hat in your office so that it's really easy and accessible to just grab your hat and put it on so that it isn't so easy to gravitate towards this behavior. And then we work a lot on self-compassion because again, I'm huge on self-compassion. And I really believe that self-compassion and self-acceptance are the medicines that heal everything that hurts us. And if we could just
Beautiful.
bring in self-compassion, everything just gets a bit easier.
Yes, that's beautiful. You can go to www.hopeandhealingcoach.com. www.hopeandhealingcoach.com. And you also have a giveaway, and I'm going to pull that up right now so that we can talk more about it. And okay, my computer wants to do its own thing, it seems. Okay, so try this instead.
Mhm.
Regulation strategies to overcome unwanted habits. And you can get that by going to, let me pull this up. It's a free guide. So you want to go to whttps:// and healing coach dot kit dot com / 335 ECB 9780. And I am putting this in the comments. Those of you that are listening to this on the podcast, um, I will repeat it again, and you might want to get a pencil and a piece of paper to write it down. Um, let
A bit of a
me,
mouthful, isn't it?
it is. Um, Let me put it on the screen again and let me also put it in the comments. These are deregulating tools. R- Tools that can help you regulate, not
Yes.
deregulate.
Yes.
You
There
don't
we
want to
go.
deregulate.
Right. Right, right.
You want
You
to
wanna recognize.
regulate
Yeah, you
and
wanna recognize it
recognize.
and regulate. Absolutely. And so this guide is because another really big thing that I teach is let's shift our focus away from stopping this behavior and shift our attention to replacing this behavior. We can't just take away a coping tool without replacing it. That doesn't work. And so these strategies are a bunch of different ideas for how to replace these behaviors. And I have this list broken down into what if you need help relaxing? What if you're bored and you need help kind of getting, pumped up? What if you need help centering? And so what if you want to be creative? And so it's just a bunch of different ideas. I created this huge list so that there's something there for everyone. And then it's also broken down into different areas of how they help.
That is beautiful. Now, let me ask you, if they go to your website, they will find the book anyway, right?
They will. Yes, absolutely. It's
Oh,
right there at the front. So if that's too much stuff to remember in that link, just go to the website hopeandhealingcoach.com and it's right there in the front.
yes.
Try this instead.
Yes, www.hopeandhealingcoach.com, and you will see try this instead. Regulation strategies to overcome unwanted behaviors. And I find it interesting that many of your clients are adults that begin this behavior as adults.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
really,
And I
go
tend
ahead.
to see that when it starts in adulthood, I tend to see that happen with a really big stressor or even
Mhm.
a trauma. I have one client who started this behavior. It was shortly after she had this huge falling out with a really close friend. And so it started after that. And so those are the type of like really big stressors that we see. Or maybe somebody loses a job unexpectedly or loses a parent or something really stressful like that can also trigger these behaviors. Again, these are all just regulation strategies. And so it makes sense that they might start when we're feeling really stressed out or dysregulated, that's when they start to come on the scene to, again, help soothe us. It doesn't mean we have to let that be the behavior that we go to, but at the end of the day, these behaviors are just trying to soothe us.
Yes. And you talked about loss. And in
Mhm,
looking at loss, I would imagine going through the stages of grief
mhm.
can trigger some of those things, the denial,
Oh, yeah.
the anger, the bargaining and all of those things. As a matter of fact, I just had a guest on that talked about grief.
Mhm.
And a lot of these behaviors may be a direct response to the loss. And it could
Sure.
be loss of a job, loss of a relationship, loss of a situation, a loss of a
Mhm.
friend, as this one had.
Yeah.
And so being in tune with yourself,
Mhm.
that's the whole key to things.
Mhm.
Being in tune. And when you're starting these behaviors, I hope you remember this show. And
Yeah.
remember, okay, I'm starting some things that I don't normally do, especially like you said, a lot of this is happening with adults.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it may not have anything to do with unresolved childhood issues.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I think this is a very, very, very important topic. I am going to play a commercial and
Mhm.
then we will be right back. Father, provider, protector, role model for a son, the image of the man that will be the husband of your daughter when that time comes. What's best for your children should be concern number one, regardless of any obstacles a father must overcome. Sometimes the injustices of our society towards many of our fathers can make it hard to stand, but you gotta stand and be a man and a father to your children in every way you possibly can. Demonstrate their worth through you by the words that you say and the things that you do. Don't ever put your children down or call them out of their name. They may become whatever you claim. Lift them up to higher ground. Let their inner beauty be seen, be found. Show them and tell them how special they are. Be the light. Be the light. Be the light to take them far. Show them and tell them how much you really care and let them know no matter what, you will always, in all ways, be there. Pray that our fathers will be guided by the light to lead their children in the ways that are right. I played that because I am so excited. We are doing a fatherhood cookout on next Saturday, 7 o'clock. And this is I'm not next Saturday from 1 to 5. I'm so used to saying 7 o'clock. Next Saturday, June 7th from 1 to 5, and it is going to be at the Southeast Community Playground in Canton, Ohio, 401 14th Street Southeast. This is for all fathers in Stark County. All fathers, come and be celebrated. Come and play and engage your children. There are going to be all kinds of competitions, including basketball, football. The police department is coming with challenge games. We've got massagers that are coming to massage your shoulders. We've got barbers coming to cut your hair. We've got food that you can eat. We've got bounce houses and face painting and just a whole number of things for fathers to engage with their children. Join us on June 7th from 1 to 5 p.m. at the Southeast Community Playground. I'm telling you, and it's free. So tell all the dads you know that you're going to be coming and you want them to join you. All right. I'm excited about that
Sounds like a good
particular.
time.
It's going to
Yeah.
be a great time. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
So okay. Now I do need to play another commercial and then we're going to just continue to talk. Think about some things that you want to make sure we get across
Mhm.
tonight. Um, well, let me ask you, does unforgiveness tie in with any of these behaviors?
Absolutely. And that unforgiveness, that really falls into the category of that self-criticism that we talked about, right? When we are not forgiving ourselves or sometimes even others, there's this self-criticism feel that's there. And so yes, that can definitely contribute. And there's also a really interesting study that was done about procrastination and forgiveness and found out that for people who didn't forgive themselves, they were more likely to continue procrastinating, which, by the way, is another unwanted behavior that I work with, than people who did forgive themselves, who were less likely to continue procrastinating. So I'm glad you brought that up because, yes, that's definitely not being able to forgive yourself can definitely continue to fuel these behaviors.
Well, speaking of that, I have another commercial and it has to do with forgiveness. So let's
Forgiveness
play.
is a powerful tool for personal growth, allowing us to let go of resentment and move forward. The key to inner peace and emotional well-being. Apologies and forgiveness go hand in hand, creating space for healing and reconciliation. Inner work and willingness are essential in the process of forgiveness, requiring us to confront our own emotions and vulnerabilities. Taking a broader perspective on actions helps us understand the complexities of human nature and the impact of forgiveness on relationships. The journey of self-discovery is intertwined with forgiveness, leading us to a deeper understanding of ourselves and others. Follow Divine Marketing Pro for more personal growth.
You want to check out authentic You want to check out Authentic Divine Marketing with Ariel Chime. That video that I shared, she did that specifically for me to talk about forgiveness and to also promote what she does. So if you want authentic marketing, if you want marketing that's going to really focus on who you are, what your purpose is, and what your passions are, you want to check out Ariel Chime, Authentic Divine Marketing. And you can go to https bit.ly/divine chime. So check out Ariel Divine Marketing and see what she can do for you as well. All right. Now back to you.
I think that tied into what we've been talking about too, with increasing awareness and knowing more about yourself, and all those things are so important to feel balanced and in alignment.
Yes, and I played that because I know, oh, that's not the one I wanted to throw. Okay, I'm getting back to your, when you're doing these shows by yourself with no support, no
Oh,
assistance, it's like,
yeah.
okay, Vera. So, okay, now I'm going to put again, this is the free guide. But again, you can just go to www.hopeandhealingcoach.com and get it. Or if you want more information, you can
Mhm.
email her at Laura Hope and Healing Coach at gmail.com. Laura Hope and Healing Coach at gmail.com. And your last name being Hope is
Mhm.
I mean, it ties in so much with the hope that you give
Yes.
others to
Yes.
understand that this doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way. And as
Right.
long as
Right.
there's hope and
Yeah.
as long as there's life, there's hope. Do you
We.
ever have
Yeah.
clients that really feel like they're at their wits' end because of their situation?
Absolutely, especially when these behaviors really take a toll on self-confidence. You can imagine if you are, missing hair, then that can make you feel like you can't get the job that you want, or you can't have the friends that you want, or you can't go out and be comfortable in public. And so, yes, some of these behaviors really get to the point that it causes a lot of problems, a lot of self-confidence issues. The other one that I see that can be really tough, well, two, I guess, stress eating and procrastination. A lot of times when people struggle with stress eating, they feel like they don't have control over, what they eat. And a lot of times with procrastination, people are saying, I know what I'm supposed to do, but I just can't seem to do it. And so those things can definitely leave people feeling like they're at their wits' end, or feeling like they're not in control of the situation. And part of the work I do is to come in and say, here's how you can be in control of this situation. Let's get you empowered. Let's get you new tools. You're doing the best with the tools that you have. Those tools aren't working for you. Let's give you new tools, because you can do this with the right tools.
Absolutely. And I've had all kinds of guests on my show. This is the first time that we've ever talked about these kinds of behavior situations. And so it's very enlightening to understand and to help our audience understand you may not feel normal doing this, but there's a solution. There
There's a
is a
reason and a solution.
solution.
Yeah.
And Laura Hope gives you those tools to help address these issues. What
Yeah.
else can you share that's going to help our audience, be it parents or in relationships, to come to terms with this? And in relationships, when you see your significant other coming into starting to do some of these behaviors, how do you address that?
Well, I love that question. I think there are two parts to the question. There's the part for the person who is engaging in the behavior, and there's the part for the person, the loved one who is seeing it. And so
Mhm.
I really encourage people to have healthy conversations about what the person engaging in the behavior, how they want to be supported. Do they want their partner to ask them, hey, how are you feeling? Do they want their partner to hand them a fidget? Do they want their partner to say, hey, you want to go for a walk, or do something like that? Because it's going to be really important that the person engaging in the behavior is getting the support that they need rather than the support that the partner thinks they need. Because the partner is I'm sure trying to be well-intentioned and trying to provide support, but sometimes the support that we get isn't the support that we need. So it starts off with, I really encourage both parties to have a conversation, and that might include the person engaging in the behavior, might include them reflecting on what they need and kind of what the signal is telling them. And then for the other person, for the partner to really try to understand, especially if this isn't something that they've struggled with, that the person engaging in the behavior, it's not that they can't control it. They can with a lot of effort and tools, but just on the surface, it's not a choice that they're making. I never want to say that we can't control it, but it's definitely not a choice. And so sometimes I think people who haven't experienced these types of behaviors think, well, if you don't want to do it, you just stop it. And it's just not that easy. So I think compassion from the partner to ask and respect how the person engaging in the behavior wants support, and then also for that person to reflect on it and make sure that they are asking for what they need and that they're comfortable with the type of support that they're getting.
I love it. I'm typing.
Mm.
Okay. Oh, and I put it in the wrong place. Okay. Let me put it in the comments. Yes. This is really valid.
Mm.
Very valid. Now let me put this up on the screen. Compassion
Mhm.
from the partner and ask,
Yes.
how can I support? And that
Yes.
reminds me, I watch Survivor.
Mm.
Okay. And this particular season, there was a young lady that was on the autism spectrum,
Mm.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
she went through, she trusted one person
Mm.
and told them, and his question was, how can I support you?
So
What
important
can
to ask.
what can I do to help you? And she told him, when you see me doing this, just come and hug me, or
Mm.
just kind of talk me down. you
Mm.
know Eh, this was one of the most empathetic, compassionate survivors
Mm.
that I've seen in a long time. And to
Mm.
see how he supported her and was there for her. And she ended up having to make fire,
Mhm.
and she panicked. She panicked so bad that she started screaming. And he was in a whole nother area of the where they are, and he ran over to her. He grabbed her, he hugged her, and then he showed her
Mhm.
how she could make fire. And she
Yeah.
actually made fire and was one of the top 3 in the finalists. And so these types of behaviors that we're talking about, I think that was a perfect example of how
Yes.
you can get allies to support you
Yes.
during the time that you're going through this. What
Yes.
type of support did you have personally?
So I attended some conferences. There's an organization called TLC. Their website is bfrb.org for anybody who wants to check them out. And so I attended some conferences. That was really helpful to be in a big room with other people who struggle with the same thing. Because before that, I hadn't met any other, or at least I didn't know that I had met other people who struggled with this. Since then, I've learned that there are so many people out there and they're all over the place. But at the time, I thought I was alone. And then I went to this conference and there were these people. There was also a retreat that I went to, really well-known name in the field, Christina Pearson ran this retreat. And so that was so helpful. I read books. I got all the, books I could get my hands on. TLC also offers a training course for providers to treat people with these conditions. And so I went through that training course and implemented those strategies. And so there was a lot of different stuff. I basically just kind of found all the stuff that I could and engaged in it. I was really at a point where I was ready to be done with this behavior. I didn't want to keep relying on it anymore. I knew that I was outgrowing it. And so I just looked all around and found what I could. And it's unfortunate that there aren't more resources, but there was enough there to at least get started.
And now you are that resource.
And now I'm trying to
You
help be
are
part
the
of the
resource.
solution. Yes,
Yes.
yes. And that's how we
Yes.
often are, right? Coaches, a lot of times, we're coaching people because we've been through this and we've walked this path, and we want to help decrease the time that it takes other people to walk this path.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. So your pain became your purpose as well
Yes,
as your passion. And
yes.
that is absolutely beautiful. Now, growing up, and I know you talked about your stepfather, did your mom, was she supportive of you, or did she not understand, or
Yeah, my mom was struggling with her own issues at the time. I think she wasn't happy in the marriage, and I think she was struggling with depression. And so she was dealing with her own things. And so she supported me in the ways that she could, but I think she didn't quite have all the resources she needed, even for herself at the time.
mhm.
And
And
it's hard to
now
support other people when we don't have enough resources for ourselves,
exactly.
right? Yeah,
It is. Exactly. Especially, I mean, you can't teach what you don't know, and you can't give what you don't
right,
have. And if
right.
you're going through stuff yourself, it makes it very difficult to be able to address the issues even with your children. That's
Mm,
why it is so important as parents to recognize their
mhm.
unresolved issues
Yes, yes.
and handle them so that you can help your children be healthy and stable and secure. Let me
Sure.
ask you,
Yeah.
so with your condition,
Mhm.
you had kind of overcame it by the time you had your children, right? Or no?
No, I didn't know. My kids were probably, oh, let's see. They were probably 10, 11, somewhere 12, somewhere around that age when I started really kind of learning these tools and strategies. And I mentioned that wigs have been the most helpful thing for me. I didn't start wearing wigs until probably 3 years ago. So even up until then, when COVID started, I was still really struggling with it. Honestly, that was a turning point for me. I was at home, our office shut down, and being isolated in a room by myself all day just made the hair pulling worse. And so I
Mm,
learned about wigs and started wearing wigs, and that's really helpful for me because then I can't mindlessly start pulling at my hair. There's
right,
something in the way, right? So
right.
so that's been really helpful for me just to be a barrier so that I can't just mindlessly pull.
Now, did your children experience seeing you do these things, or did you always do it like when
I
you were by
usually did it
yourself?
when I was by myself. I usually had just enough awareness when I was around somebody else to not do it. But as soon as I was in a room by myself, without even thinking about it, my hand would go straight to my head. And it really was that quick. Someone would walk out of the room and my hand would go straight to my head. And so it wasn't intentionally, it was just I was able to hold
That
it
was your
together enough to not
go-to.
do it in front of people. Yeah, and then as soon as I was alone, I went to my go-to coping strategy. Yeah, so now my kids know that I do it, and I talk about it in a way that, there's no shame in it. This is just what I do, this is how my brain works. I'm very, very careful when I do talk about it, that I'm talking about it in the same way that I would say I had a ham sandwich for lunch earlier today, right? There's no shame with it. So I really do try to show my kids that side of it, that I'm not ashamed. This is part of me. It's who I am. It doesn't make me less of a person. It's just what I am. It's how my brain works.
Yes. Now, these behaviors are not hereditary, right?
They unfortunately are, although I have a really interesting story as far as it relates to that. So, yes, so they tend to be very heritable. They can be, there's a bit of like nature versus nurture, right? So, I'm sure that there are some people who pick up these behaviors from seeing their parents, but there's also a genetic component. And so, kind of to drive that point home, I actually come from several generations of people who pick their skin, and I have no idea how I ended up being somebody who pulled my hair. So this wasn't a behavior
Wow.
that that was modeled for me, and yet generations before me, and even my son pick his skin. I think I can go back 4 generations for people who pick their skin, and so I don't know why I'm the odd one out with pulling my hair, but I do think that that speaks to how there is a genetic component, and it's not necessarily, 100% hereditary. It's just, just what I do. This is how my brain works. So I don't know why I'm the odd one out with pulling my hair, but I do think that that speaks to how there is a genetic component, and it's not necessarily 100% hereditary. It's just what I do. This is how my brain works. So I don't know why I'm the odd one out with pulling my hair, but I do think that that speaks to how there is a genetic component, and it's not necessarily 100% hereditary. It's just what I do. This is how my brain works. So I don't know why I'm the odd one out with pulling my hair, but I do think that that speaks to how there is a genetic component, and it's not necessarily 100% hereditary. It's just what I do. This is how my brain works. So I don't know why I'm the odd one out with pulling my hair, but I do think that that speaks to how there is a genetic component, and it's not necessarily 100% hereditary. It's just what I do. This is how my brain works. So I don't know why I'm the odd one out with pulling my hair, but I do think that that speaks to how there is a genetic component, and observed behavior because I never saw anybody pulling their hair. And this is still, my brain was still wired to find something with my body to regulate.
That is, and we're out of time. I don't believe
Oh,
it. The fact that I'm glad I asked that question about it
I'm
being
glad you did too.
hereditary or
Mhm.
not, and one other, oh, we're running out of time, but I have to ask this question. So, how have you addressed the issue of your son pulling his skin?
Picking his skin. So that's a really complicated question because of the factor of his dad being in the picture and all that stuff. But the short answer is I support him. I have helped him get different band-aids to cover up those spots or ointments. Ask him how he's doing. Ask him if he needs anything, and tell him that if there's a time that he wants to talk more about it, I'm here for him, and I'm here to support him with whatever I can do.
That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
listen, Laura, you are a gem,
Thank you.
and what you're doing is so important
Mm.
because there are a lot of silent sufferers
Mm-hmm.
that are
Yes.
having some of these behaviors and they don't know what to do. Now you
Very
do.
isolating
Go
thing.
to
Yes.
Laura Hope and Healing Coach at gmail.com.
Yes.
Contact her, Laura Hope and Healing Coach at gmail.com, or go to her website, which is, let me
And just
pull
to
it up.
clarify real quick for the email, it's hopeandhealingcoach@gmail.com, but not with the Laura. So just to clarify, I
Oh,
think my name got
okay.
in there, but the Laura isn't in the email address. So just to
Oh, okay. I
clarify, I didn't want
wonder
anybody
why it
trying to
was
reach out to that one. Yeah.
I wonder why it was separated.
Yeah.
Okay. I just changed it
There we go.
because
But you
we
can
want
also
people to be in
reach me
touch
at the
with you.
website. There we go. You can also reach me at the website as well.
Yes.
My email address is there too.
Yes, and the website is www.hopeandhealingcoach.com. And don't forget Fathers, June 7th, at the Southeast Community Playground at 401 14th Street Southeast. I want 500 dads there. That's my goal. Help me get it. Listen, thank you so much. And you'll be back because this is a conversation that needs to be talked about.
Yes, we need to talk about it more.
Yes.
Yeah.
And don't forget, go to www.hopeandhealingcoach.com and get the free regulation strategies to overcome unwanted behaviors.
Mhm.
Get it now. As a matter of fact, just go to her website right now. Just go right now.
Yep, you'll get a copy of it right away. As soon as it'll ask for your email address and then it'll send you the copy.
And I'm going to pull it up myself. Well,
Oh, great.
listen, thank you so much. God bless
Yeah.
you.
Thank
And
you for having me.
audience, we will see you next week, next Tuesday, and have another guest. In the meantime, have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. And we will see you soon. And Laura, if you would hold on
Hmm.
for me, I would appreciate it.
Yep.
All right. So let me pull you down. And again, we will see you next week.
The